Hello, and welcome back to the Women's Rugby Show Weekly podcast with me, Sam. By the way, we are back again with episode 9, kind of a pre-Christmas bumper special for you all. We'll be talking all things PWR and talk to 3 different sides, getting a bit of perspective from across the league. We will also be having a little bit of a pathway special as we'll be talking to a couple of members of the England and 20s, one from a coach's perspective and one from a player's perspective as they're in camp this week. And we'll be also looking at Hartpury College and their FE kind of ACE programme, talking to their forwards coach, Georgia Brock, after their return from the World Schools Festival over in Thailand. And as always, we'll be rounding off the news and kind of taking a look at how the tables lie in other leagues across the world heading into Christmas. If you're listening to this over on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you check us out on Instagram, on YouTube, to kind of see it in video form and also see all of the content we produce throughout the week. But if you're watching this on YouTube or watching on Instagram, make sure you head over to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcast to listen to us on the go. Let's get into this episode. Like I mentioned in the introduction, we've got a lot of kind of interview content and different voices coming in this episode. So I'll rattle through a little bit just on a PWR roundup first. And there was just one home win last weekend with Bristol beating the Trailfinders. And obviously that means 3 away wins. Gloucester Hartpury at Exeter Chiefs, Saracens at Leicester Tigers, and also Loughborough Lightning at Sale Sharks, a game we were at. And Saracens remain top kind of with that perfect record. They've been very good so far this season, but they'll be having their biggest test of the season so far coming up. And we'll be talking to Alex Osprey and Ella Verbas about that as they take on Bristol. And we'll also be talking to Dave Ward and Amber Reid about that. In terms of kind of stats around the weekend and also the season so far, Claudia McDonald is now top try scorer after a brace over the weekend. It's one of 6 braces of tries actually over the weekend in the PWR, with Sophie de Gerdy still the top point scorer. And just kind of some also other impressive stats. Paige Farries of Saracens made the most meters, the most line breaks, beat the most offenders, and also had the most try assists over the weekend. Had an incredible weekend for Canadian winger and Saracens winger. And from the game we watched, Moena Talling made a tackle count of 31, which is just ridiculously impressive. And she's kind of so instrumental for that sales. And you can see that watching them at the weekend as well. And this weekend, 3 games coming up over the weekend, 1 on Friday, 2 on Saturday. And kind of the round is completed with a big game 15 on the 30th between Harlequins and Gloucester Hartpury. But this weekend, we've got the Trailfinders against Sale, Saracens against Bristol, and Loughborough against Exeter. Enough of me talking and kind of just chatting on. Time to speak to from Bristol, Dave Ward and Amber Reid. From Saracens, Alex Osprey and Ella Verbas. And from Loughborough, Nathan Smith and Chloe Rowley. Alex first, just do these kind of big games make your job easier in terms of kind of getting the players hyped up and switched on and more focused?
That's a tough one, really. I think the players naturally, they want to be involved in the biggest of games on the biggest of stages. So I think these are the ones that, when they're old and grey, and catch me up being old and grey, that's the games they look back on, the real tough ones where it's a real battle. It's decided by really small margins, and they're the ones that I think players that get excited by, like, it gets the fires burning. So relatively, it's more about keeping focus, keeping disciplined, and not getting, caught up in the emotion or the momentum, whichever way it's going. And that's probably where our focus is, or certainly mine, lies in the approach to some of these games, is that we can't almost go too far. We've still got to understand that, there's emotions positive if we channel it in the right way, but we can't get carried up in it and get caught away with it. So it's the players will have a good bounce about them, obviously off the back of some good form and some good performances. But I think, as I said in one of the previous answers, that they look at Ella's got some mates there. We got some players that moved across there, so you look out for it on the fixture list, and I'm sure that gets them burning to want to put in a really impressive performance. Again, that period just before Christmas, when there's going to be hopefully quite a good crowd in. I think that gets them going. So short answer is no. I think it's probably easier. It's just the emotional control that we've got to get right.
You mentioned that form, obviously you're 4 from 4, kind of heading into this game. Just how important is carrying that momentum over for yourselves into the new year?
Yeah, look, momentum, whether it be a swing of momentum in a game, or whether it be the momentum in the season, as we saw last year, if you can build that, it gives you that extra spring in your step, the confidence builds, and I think you'd be borderline verging on madness if you said you don't want momentum. Like, absolutely, you do want to keep building it, But that's the thing, it's keep building on other areas as well, keep building your game, go forward, making sure that the performances are there. Because sometimes results don't go your way, but that's where you've got to make sure that you don't fall off a cliff with it. It's keep building, it's keep building. So momentum has lots of different meanings, but would I want to be going into January and into the new year, 5 from 5? Absolutely. Will I want to perform in a big game against Bristol? Absolutely. If we don't get the result that we wanted and we're working for, then it's not the end of the world, but it will just be a little setback. But again, we've got to build and learn from that. So I think the mixture really is building momentum, but making sure you take your learning opportunities. And it's people say, oh, you learn more in defeat. I'd rather learn a lot more in victory. So that's hopefully what we'll get at the weekend.
And obviously, there were 3 debutants on Saturday against Leicester. Just how happy were you with them? Obviously, you touched on Tori a little bit, but obviously Carmen and Beth as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Like Tori, very similar to Amelia in that she's got an unbelievably exciting future ahead of her. She's got a bit of competition next to me that she's got to fight past first, but that will be great for her. Beth, unfortunate that when she came back from WXV, picked up a quad strain. She was looking fantastic, comfortable on the ball, decent carrier, very physical in defence. And she came on the back quarter of the game and did well. But we've seen her a lot in training. So, we expect that because that's what she's showing day in, day out. And I think where her potential for her game to go is exciting, gives us another little tool in that midfield to see, change balance, look at what we're doing. And then Carmen, someone that we've long admired, very tough matches against Worcester, and obviously very sad what happened there. But we were really pleased when we could find a home for Carmen, because again, she's very much under the radar, but what she does day in, day out, week in, week out, season in, season out, she's metronomic in terms of what she does and how she performs. And it's very much someone that is underrated, I think, by the rugby world, but does immense amount and is fully, massively respected in the teams that she plays in. Quiet, but gets on, does her job and does it incredibly well. So yeah, happy that she's got a debut. Looking forward to seeing the scrum battles this evening, to see what the front rows look like for the weekend.
And another one of those newer players, also from Worcester, Paige Farage. Obviously, I think the stats came out today that she made the most meters, most line breaks, beat the most defence and the most try assists across the league over the weekend. Just how much of an impact has she made kind of this season's coming in?
I mean, those stats speak for themselves. I'm not a big stat man, but they sound pretty good. Yeah, I think again, it's easy. We've seen Paige a lot, whether it be in a Canada shirt, in a Worcester shirt, and she's dangerous. The biggest compliment I can pay her probably prior to her being in the group is that I don't like playing against her. She's really threatening, really dangerous, and she's translated that straight into a Saracen shirt. But I think probably the biggest kind of compliment and bit that I knew, having spoke to people about her prior to her coming to the club, she's just an incredibly decent human being. Works hard, bounces off people. She brings an energy to the group, quite quirky, but Ella can probably talk more about quirkiness than me. But she's fantastic, and there's a reason why she has been so successful across the clubs and with Canada. And I'm really excited to see where she can go, because I think we're scratching the surface of some of the things that she's done in the Saracen shirt, and they were pretty special at the weekend. So I very much look forward to seeing her grow, develop further, with us, and see how that translates to Pac 4 and WXBs and World Cups, etc. But yeah, she's a very exciting talent, and we're very lucky in that we've got a lot of exciting talents that bounce off each other, drive each other forward, and to be honest, they make it pretty exciting to coach. And yeah, I look forward to being in awe and hopefully not getting caught in awe by the players with my jaw in the ground.
And Ella, just as Alex just touched on, just how important are these kind of characters and new characters coming into the club for you to enjoy yourself within the club, but also enjoy yourself playing rugby as well?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a really refreshed team this year. We've lost a lot of key players, but gained probably double as many. So we, as much as we're gaining new rugby experience, new skills, whatever, I think the main thing is that you're gaining new dynamics within the team. So yeah, it's really exciting. There's new changing room setups, new friendships, new everything. So yeah, it's really exciting for what's to come.
And finally, Alex kind of touching at the start there, kind of these big occasions, how it's what you'll be looking back on when you finish your career. Just how excited are you for Saturday? Obviously, a massive game against one of last year's semi-finalists in front of hopefully a big crowd just before Christmas.
Yeah, massively. And the big games are the ones you remember, as you said. But as Alex has touched on, this league, I say it every year, this league is just different gravy now. It's just absolutely every week is you don't know what's going to come, and you don't know how the game's going to go, which I think 3 years ago you probably couldn't have said that. You probably knew the weaker teams you were going to play against, kind of how that was going to go. But the last weekend is exactly an example of that. Kind of like, it's just the league is ever growing and completely exciting now. So the big games really might not be much more exciting than the games that you wouldn't consider big. So yeah, every week is big.
Perfect. Thanks, very best of luck for the weekend.
Cheers, thank you.
From me, you kind of mentioned how tough Saracens are to beat. Just how much is it about kind of focusing on yourselves and not focusing too much on all their strengths?
Sam, I think it's really important. Like, again, last night we've got to give Saracens the respect they deserve. They've won 4 from 4. They've got some fantastic players. We've got to know what's coming to nullify. But then, like you say, we've got to bring what we bring to the table as well. No one plays like Bristol Bears in the league. Teams play similar or play slightly the same or different, but no one has the same carry, pass, offload ratio as us. No one has the same possession as us. I'd like to think no one has the same framework or structure as us. So we've got to bring that to the table. The one thing I will say is teams know that's coming. We just got to make sure we're accurate with it. And if we are, like we've shown time and time again, we're a match for any team. Tonight's very important in terms of that training wise. And then Thursday, less so, because obviously we can get not as much done. But we've got to make sure Thursday's a confidence booster, just to make sure that when we are calling the right calls, we're doing the right things, we're getting it correct. So then on Saturday when we rock up, it's second nature.
And you mentioned that Brandon and this is Christmas cracker. Do you think kind of the hype around the game makes it more exciting for the players and yourself heading into it?
Yeah, 100%. Like, everyone's coming in on Monday. There's a buzz, isn't there? It's on TNT, 12:30 kickoff. Sarah Cox is a referee. Like, it couldn't get any bigger for the league in terms of like 2 teams that want to challenge, like Claire said, for those top 2, top 4 spots. Myself and Alex don't particularly get on, which is fine as well. Like a healthy rivalry, that's all well and good. Like there's lots of subplots to it, which is quite nice, and we like that in rugby. We don't have to be all friendly and get on with everyone. We want the stories. We want to have these games where actually that it does mean something, and someone's going to have a good Christmas and someone isn't.
And you mentioned those kind of clashes all across the pitch with the internationals on both sides. Do you think that's kind of a testament to where the league's going now, that a game like this has all these international clashes across it?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, look, you see it in every game. Like you were at the Loughborough Sale game, I think. I mean, there was 21 internationals in that game, and there's no disparity to Loughborough Sale. But again, just to start that game with that amount of international players, you look throughout the league. It's littered with internationals players with absolute quality, and they get punished. If you're not on the ball, you're going to get punished now. Teams are in their position. The fact that Worcester got out of the league, all of a sudden their sort of players dispersing throughout the league has just strengthened everyone else, and you've seen that again with players going obviously to us, but to trail finders. Vicky Laughlin was their player of the day at the weekend. Karis Cox had a very good game. Again, all these players coming into different teams, strengthening them, it only makes it better viewing for the spectator. And you asked me to predict the results of the weekend. I probably couldn't, probably one of them, but that's about it.
And obviously you've got all those international, you do have those younger players like Jenny Hesketh, Gabrielle Negrelli. Just how important is kind of finding the balance of getting them that game time to grow them, but also having the strongest squad out there?
Yeah, I think it's got to be on merit. Like those guys, they deserve their opportunity on merit. Absolutely. I think Jenny's come in and done a fantastic job. Gabrielle Negrelli, a lot of people obviously have seen her play now. They know what she's about a bit more. She's making a name for herself. And again, if she gets an opportunity this weekend, I'm sure she'll take it. And I think what happens with these players like Jenny, like Gabriella, like Ella Loverbond, the fact they're training with these internationals every day, they know what the standard is now. They know what's required. They see like the quality of Amber Reid's passing, the work of Evie Gallagher. Jenny's starting to be like, right, okay, Courtney Keat, who's doing her rehab, is probably working harder than anyone else in the program, and she's on her rehab program, and she's an international fullback. So for Ella and Jenny to see that is again just testament, one, to the internationals for what they're doing, but two, for those girls coming in, usually off the back of the day of lectures if they choose to go to them, which I do encourage, by the way. and to have to then, like I said, put in a full shift from 5 till 9 to play in the Premiership at the weekend.
And just the last one for me, obviously touched on how you've had those 6 games in a row. You got the week off first after Christmas. Just how is kind of the training and the schedule going to be like for you guys heading into the new year?
Well, Sam, you'll be pleased to know I am the nicest DOR in the Premiership, or head coach. I've given them New Year's Day off and the 2nd. I mean, it's ridiculous. I want to be on New Year's Day. My management team talked me out of it. I trained New Year's Day as a player. I played New Year's Day. So I was like, in my day, and they were like, you're ridiculous. So they've got the 1st and the 2nd off. They'll come in the 4th. We'll give them that weekend off to enjoy themselves, and then we're back into Leicester. So the girls can really enjoy their Christmas. And I've kind of said, like, don't leave anything out there this week. Leave everything on the table in training. Absolutely go for it. Go for it Saturday, and then put your feet up. And like I said, I've given them the 1st and the 2nd off, which is unprecedented as a coach in my history, certainly. I probably won't be doing it again.
Obviously, Dave's kind of touched on this before about how Saracens are branded this game kind of as a Christmas cracker, massive event. Just how special are these kind of big games for players, especially right before Christmas?
Yeah, I think the league's definitely getting more competitive, but the big games are the ones that pull in the crowd. If you can market it right, you can get people down, and especially around the holiday time, the Christmas, people probably have a bit more time off, or it's more of a family occasion. So I think definitely that marketing side and to get people there just creates that atmosphere that we want to see. The Friday night at Gloucester, the first Friday night game we had over 1,000 people at Shaftesbury Park watching, and that was pretty special. So obviously, Bristol Sarries, big game, top 4 contenders, to then have that at Christmas and the way that they're putting it out there is definitely going to be a special occasion. And one, it's on TV, but also that's how you grow the game. That's how you get people interested to come back in the new year as well.
And it's obviously been a massive block of rugby for yourselves. Just I think 6 games in a row. Just how important has it been to kind of keep momentum going and going when it's been tougher and tougher with like knocks and niggles heading through this block?
Yeah, it's definitely been a bit of a tough block, but we've known that from the start, and we knew we just had to buckle down and get into it. I think it's been more mental, especially off the back of a WXV as well. It feels like we're almost halfway through our season already, and I think that's probably where some of our frustrations came from, especially early doors. Like we got off well against Sale, and then obviously had the 2 games against Exeter and Gloucester, and everyone was a bit frustrated that it wasn't quite clicking, but you kind of have to remind yourself that, yes, we've got new people in and it's not going to click in 2-3 weeks, because that's pretty much the time that we had together. So I think the biggest challenge for us has been managing the expectation and the frustration. But yeah, Dave's kind of right at the start. He's like, you got 6 games in a row and we're going hell for leather because we want to be in a good place come New Year. So yeah, we've definitely been prepared for it. Doesn't necessarily make it easy at times, but we've got a great backroom staff here, S&C medics who have all looked after us as well. So yeah, the squad's in a pretty good place.
And just the last one from me, Dave mentioned that he's given you 1st and the 2nd off. Just how excited are you for kind of a bit of a break over New Year?
Yeah, it'd be really nice. Obviously, really unfortunate that Worcester. Obviously, that's the reason why we get those couple of days off, and yeah, it's a bit of a sad situation, but I think for us it's a really good chance, especially like you said, off the back of 6 games in a row, to have a bit of time to be able to get away. And obviously I'm from Bristol, so I get to see my family quite a lot, but for the girls that are traveling, obviously like we've alluded to, there's lots of internationals, so they actually get a good chance to go home and spend time with family and reset, which I think is really important, especially how our season's going at the moment. It just seems to be getting longer and longer, so yeah, the times that we can get like this to go away and have a bit of a break from rugby are really important.
Cheers, and the best of luck for the weekend.
Thank you very much.
Nathan, just a few quick ones from me, really. Obviously, I was at the game on Saturday. Just kind of what are your reflections from that win?
Yeah, I was just really happy with the way we played in general, to be honest. Like, I thought it was probably the first performance that's really reflected how we've been training and how we've prepared for the game, which is really impressive. I was really pleased with probably our defensive physicality, which was probably missing the week before. So it's good to see that as well. I thought, we had 15 people on the field and 23 people in the squad that really wanted to play for Lightning and really wanted to do well. So that was also really pleasing to see.
Is it kind of a difficult place to go, Sale, when they've got that kind of tough home record? Obviously, beating Harlequins at home recently, they're growing side with kind of a lot of international talent. Is it a tough place to go for an away side?
Yeah, like I just think it's not just Sale. I just don't think there's any easy games. Like it's a tough league. Like every time I'm just scheduling for the next block, and it's like you're looking at the fixtures and like every game's, you know, a tough game. Like regardless of whether it's home, whether it's away, it is a seriously tough league at the moment, which is good.
And obviously, Carmela had a brace at the weekend. Just how impressed have you been with her so far this season? Obviously, she kind of came to side at the end of last season, but how impressed have you been with her this season so far?
Yeah, really impressed. I think she's worked really hard in the off season. I think she worked really hard in the Premiership Cup period to earn the right, really, to play in the Premiership. I think she's just growing week on week. She's still got a lot to learn. She's from more of a sevens background, so she's still learning the 15-a-side game. But it's just great to be able to have a player like that to develop. I think in terms of a 12, she potentially got everything in terms of she can carry and she can pass, and kick, obviously. So it's exciting to work with players like that.
How important is it kind of finding the balance of the players like Carmela, kind of in the start of a career, and those who've kind of got international caps, got lots of international caps, for example, like Chloe Rowley?
Yeah, I think within any team you've got to have balance. Like if you have, 15 world-class players and they're never here, they're always away with their international teams, then you're not going to build much of a team. But then you need those world-class players to come back into your group and add that stardust that you need to get you over the line and win games and perform well. But it's, we all have a responsibility within the league to develop players, essentially. Like the EQP is getting higher. And I think I've said in the past, I've probably said it to yourself, like there's no better feeling as a coach to be able to take someone from an academy position and bring them through and give them an opportunity to display what you're seeing in training. But there is definitely need a blend between the younger players coming through who need developing, the Premiership players who are going to be your core week in, week outers, and then your international stardust that you sprinkle on top of it.
And obviously, Chiefs this weekend, one of last year's finalists. Just how important is it to kind of carry that momentum from last weekend forward into this one?
Yeah, essentially, like the challenge is how do we back-to-back performances? Like I thought we played really well at the weekend, but I didn't think it was by any means, we've peaked. So it's a case of how do we just double up doing what we've been doing in training, which is the challenge. Regardless of the result, I have to see what I saw defensively in our tackles, but also we need to now also just step up our attack and get that fire in as well. So it's an exciting challenge.
And kind of back at Franklin's Garden as well. Just how much do the girls kind of enjoy playing there at home?
Yeah. Really enjoy playing there. It's a great stadium to play, great pitch to play on. So yeah, I think the excitement will also only get greater the more we play there. There's a lot of people within that group that have not played much rugby there. However, we want to build a relationship and a rapport with the stadium where every time we're going there, we're putting a performance on.
And finally, just last one for me, just what's kind of the plans for this group over New Year? Have you given them any time off, or is it kind of straight back in after this weekend ahead of the next round of fixtures?
No, I think it's important. Like they'll have a week off after this fixture. They'll go see the families. I think they've put a lot of hard work in. The players who have gone away and played in the XV have put a lot of hard work in internationally, and then they come back to club, and every club's got a big expectation on them now to perform within our environment. And then also I've had, like you said about Carmela, she's been with me through the whole process of pre-season, played pretty much all the Prem Cup games, gone through to the Prem Cup, so she gets to have a week off and spend some time with family and recoup. And I think that's just as important as training. next week. I'd say they deserve some time, but we can't look at that. We've just got to keep all eyes on Exeter.
Kind of just a few quick ones for me. Just looking back at Sale to start with, there were 21 out of the 30 starters in that game were internationals from kind of a variety of different teams. Just do you think that's kind of testament to how much the league is growing, that there are matchups all over the pitch in kind of every game you play?
Yeah, I think, it's definitely down to the way that the league is now. When I first joined, the Prem back in 2017, I think, or 2018, I played for Harlequins, and then it was like a handful of like different internationals. And I think definitely over the years, like teams from like everywhere are now getting like all internationals in from all different areas, which is definitely boosting the league in a way. It's bringing like the quality of performances higher week in, week out, and it's really like pushing people, even like students, for example, that are coming through the ranks, like pushing them to perform better each week because they've got a lot of competition, and then it's pushing internationals to also do that as well because you've got the younger ones at your heels pushing you on. But yeah, like it's definitely changed massively, and I think it's only a positive thing in my eyes.
And plenty of Scots, both in your side and in Sale's side. Do you think having them kind of so distributed out the league is only going to help the national side grow as well?
Yeah, I think like for years that's always been our aim. When I was younger, I went to France, and that was the main aim, was to get more experience at a higher level, to go back to Scotland and take that experience with me into Scotland. And I think, yeah, like it's only going to benefit Scotland in a positive way, to get more exposure to high performance areas and like high stress environments where, you have to think on the ball, and you have to think on your feet and react in game situations, or even after games as well, when it comes to analysing. And it really it makes you look at the game in a different way, and it's definitely helped us over the years, as the performances show. Like, Scotland's, we struggled to win games at a lot of the time, but now 6 games win on the bounce. Like that's only testament to how our players are spread over the league, and how it's positively impacting us as a country as well.
And just heading into Exeter this week, and just kind of how important is it to carry on that momentum that you've taken from the win over Sale?
Yeah, I think it's massively important for us. That's been our aim this week, is just to have back-to-back performances. We performed against Leicester, and then we had a really tough game against Bristol, and then performed against Sale. And I think it's just about backing that up. It's about doing it like, on the bounce, and showing what we've done in training and how hard we've worked in training over the last, even 6 months, how we can put that on the pitch a second time around, and almost like having the belief and the confidence that we can do that, because just now we've not had that. So definitely like the belief and the want to do that, and the work rate to do that is massive for us going into this weekend.
And you're facing one of your former clubs within the PWR. Just kind of, what does that feel like as a player going back to play against a former club?
I think for me it's exciting. Like I love to challenge myself, and I think going against team opposition that were once teammates is big for me, because it's I enjoy like on the pitch like having a laugh, and interacting with old teammates, new teammates, just like making it a bit fun. And I think when you play a team that you've played for before, there's always that element of it. Obviously you're very, very focused on doing your job, but it kind of just makes you feel a bit more comfortable and a bit more like at ease, because like you're excited for what's in front of you. And I think that's definitely the thing for me, is like I'm excited to see how I can perform, and how I can do like one-on-one matchups against opposition that were once teammates is really exciting for me.
I'm back at Franklin's Gardens at the weekend. Just how much have you kind of enjoyed playing there so far?
Yeah, I really enjoy Franklin's Gardens. I think it's an amazing pitch. As being a back, you always want a pitch that's kind of looked after, and it's nice to run on, and I think it's massive for me. And then also like the atmosphere, we get a lot of fans along, which are little girls, little boys, adults, parents come along, and they're always up for a chat after the game, which is really nice to have. And it just makes you feel it's almost like a home from home almost for me. I've only played there a handful of times so far, but even then, like even my first game, I settled in really well, and it is a nice stadium to play in. And we've got even though it's branded as Northampton Saints, we've got our little touch on it now, which is nice going forward, and it makes you feel like part of that club, and part of the future as well.
Just one last one for me. Obviously, it's been such a massive block of kind of PWR fits, and obviously you had that bye week, but just how much are you kind of looking forward to a rest, and how much kind of has this first block of fixtures been a success for Lightning?
Yeah, I think we're all as players, athletes looking forward to a break. You know, it does build up like the week after week, and yeah, you've got a bye week, but you don't fully switch off. You're still thinking about what's the next game coming up and what can you do to be better, to be in the best place for that game. And yeah, I think we all are at a point just now where we are really excited for the time off, but we're also like we're still focusing, we're still thinking about Exeter. And what was the second part?
And just kind of how much of this first block has been a success for Loughborough so far?
Yeah, I think the first block has been pretty successful so far. You know, we've got a couple of wins under our belt, which is you know, hugely positive and a confidence booster for us, especially with the way that we finished last season. I think we really struggled there, and I think a lot of motivation was really low. And I think the way that this has went so far is really positive. Like, you know, we've targeted the teams that we really wanted to go towards, and we've got success from there. And it's just about building from here as well. Like, you know, we're not going to wake up one day and it's all going to be changed and we're all going to be, you know, world class and, you know, amazing at our structure and amazing with Nathan as our new head coach. You know, it does take time, but I do think we can definitely take positives from what's happened so far and take that into the next block after Christmas.
As we mentioned earlier, we're kind of having a bit of a pathways focus of this episode. And to start off, we're talking to kind of a couple of members of the England under-20 setup. We'll talk to Sarah McKenna, who is their new consultant assistant coach, kind of taking the attack lead on there, and also Tori Sellors from now Saracens women, formerly of Warriors women, and kind of about her journey to where she is in her rugby career, how she's finding the England camp. It's her third year in an England under-20s setup. So really kind of different and interesting story from Tori. So we're talking to those two now, and let's get into those chats. So kind of how the role with the pathways in England under-20s came about for you.
So I've been coaching about 6 years now, sort of at various different places. And then last year, I actually had the chance to come into camp with the under-20s just as sort of a guest coach. And then caught up with then. I've been contracted with the Red Raiders over the summer, so sort of thinking out what I was going to move to next in my life and what the next opportunities were. Then had a missed call from LJ one afternoon and got back to her, and she sort of offered me the role. So it was really exciting, having been in that environment before, knowing, you know, the talent that was around and, you know, what they wanted to do with that program to try and create future Red Roses. You know, when obviously that opportunity came about, it was really exciting, and just so pleased that, you know, LJ thought of me as, you know, someone that she wanted to work alongside as her assistant.
A lot of that experience came at OA Saints, wasn't it? So just kind of how does coaching women's rugby at that kind of level differ for you and kind of coaching at a pathway level?
Yeah, so I think probably the biggest difference is the difference in age. Like at OAs at the moment, coaching 36-year-old sort of women who've got children, full-time job, and, you know, some very amazing jobs and people in very different stages in their life. Whereas obviously in the pathway, you've got girls who are between that 18 and 20-year-old age bracket. A lot of them are sort of still in education and like associated with potentially, you know, premiership clubs or something thereabouts. So sort of very different places in their careers. I suppose more than anything, my principles in terms of how I see the game being played is very much the same. So bringing those two together is you know, almost exactly the same. So in terms of that, it doesn't change too much, but I think there's probably just a little bit of difference around where those players are at, what they've probably experienced during that day, and also the way in which you coach them. Obviously, difference in sort of that training age and what they've experienced before.
You've also kind of stepped up to coach at Saracens this year as well, haven't you? So how does that role kind of balance with all your other coaching setups?
Well, I suppose the Saracens stuff, player coach role is dip my toes in it a little bit, and probably a little bit more than I'd want to, being injured at the moment. So probably sitting on that coaching side more than I'd like to. But yeah, obviously been at Saracens a long time now, so know sort of what we're trying to achieve there, the way that we want to play, absolute clarity in that. So actually that's been a really seamless transition, but one that I'd like to move back, put the scale and the dial back towards the playing side more than the coaching side at the moment, but just waiting for that, for a couple of things to heal up, and then hopefully I'll be good to go.
How do you kind of see yourself as a coach? Is it kind of a motivator, a deep thinker, or kind of where do you see your balance of your coaching style?
Yes, I think probably the first one, more than anything. I like to think that I've got that player sense still in my head, like still playing the game, and I can sort of see things from a player perspective, and where those challenges lie. I think I think sometimes when you haven't played the game in a little bit of time, then sometimes you forget what it's like being a player in those scenarios, and sometimes it's having I think some level of regard for making mistakes, understanding those pressurized situations, what's going through your head at the time, and then really trying to help the girls and coach them through those experiences. Obviously, from a player perspective, I think sometimes when you're removed from the game, you can see it very structured or like formulaic, when actually there's such human element to it, which I think I'm still really close to being a player myself.
Have you kind of modelled your style in any of your past coaches? Obviously, you've played under so many world-class coaches during your career, so you kind of model yourself in any of them?
Yeah, probably a little bit from everywhere. Yeah, like you said, being blessed playing or being coached by so many players, and actually, again, playing alongside so many players, and so many players that I've played alongside have also been coaches. If you think about the likes of Katie Daly-McLean, she was as much of a coach to me as she was a teammate. So I think, yeah, a little bit from everywhere. I think probably more recently had James Tyrrell coaching our back setup last year at Saracens. I think he was hugely inspirational in the way that I see the game.
And just how important are camps like this for the under-20s kind of are heading into season? Obviously, like you said, you've seen them this season. Just how important are these camps?
I think they're really important in terms of getting our eyes on the girls, and just seeing what they're doing, like constant footage coming out of them playing, like within wherever they're at. So that's something that me and LJ try and keep a track of as much as possible. So it's not so much that when they come here, that's the only time that we've seen them, so that pressure's on them to perform. But I think more important is that we've got this idea of how we see the game being played, and trying to get that into them. There's a reason that they're at those camps. They're very talented. That's why they're there. So I think for me and LJ, it's that balance between getting in the right structure, but then not overcoaching them. Like I said, there's a reason that they're there. They're extremely talented. So trying to marry up that balance between adding that game plan, that game model element, and then also bringing some of their best assets out. So yeah, important that we get them together, but then also, allow them to be free within that.
And just how are you finding work with LJ? Obviously, such a well-rounded and well-respected coach in the women's games. How much are you enjoying working with her so far?
She's been awesome. Yeah, just every interaction I have with her, I think she's just got so much. She makes you feel like she's got so much time on her hand, like listening to you, really empathetic, really understanding. In terms of some of the detail around the contact area is just unmatched. Some of the stuff that she's brought from her own experiences and fighting, I think is so unique, and somewhere I can see myself like growing massively off of her. I think as a leader, she's massively inspirational, and she makes, I think, the whole like setup, like, and people around her feel like they're in a massive family and cared for deeply. And I think I remember when I was in under-20s and Giselle was my head coach, and she very much had a really similar feeling about her, where we felt really looked after, and that we had someone who was sort of in our corner fighting for us, and someone who believed in us. And I think LJ has really similar qualities, and something working alongside her, you also feel that from her as well. So yeah, it's been a dream transition to work under her in this environment.
And obviously, there's so many of the kind of under-20s group playing regular PWR rugby. How important do you think that is for kind of the success of any kind of England under-20s side?
To be playing in PWR?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think obviously it's important that like the best players are having exposure at that level, but I don't think it's the be all and end all. I think look, it's great for those individuals if they're playing at their level, and of course it'll add massive experience and which they can bring back into that group. But I don't think it's be all and end all. We've got players playing at many different places in different leagues and experiencing their rugby, at different places. So I think the biggest thing is that they can all bring that together and not lose sight of sort of what makes them them and some of their best assets, and not lose that. Like, look, it's amazing that we've got those star talents, but also there's players doing amazing things elsewhere in other leagues.
And there's plenty of your Saracens teammates within the kind of squad and group. Just, is it get a little bit strange coaching them when you're being kind of with them as a teammate?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a bit strange coaching them when you've been on nights out with them. But no, I think they're a really good bunch. Really players who first and foremost work really hard. So I think it's always easy to coach players who do that.
And
so I think they make it really easy for me. And was it?
And just last one for me, you've kind of touched on it with kind of modeling yourself on past coaches, but have you had any kind of words of advice from people you may have coached you, or kind of people who have made that step up into the coaching setup from being a player?
No, I don't think it's so much word of advice, but I think probably the most the best thing that people have said to me is sort of like giving me their time, that I can go and discuss things with them. I think I've had so many people be really, really generous in terms of saying like, look, if you ever want to come down and chat about something, or want to look at this together, look at that together, just being greeted with so much generosity, with people being open for me to sort of learn off them and experience that. I think any queries I did have come up, I know there's loads of people who could support me there, so I feel like sort of really really supported within that. So across all sort of areas that I'm coaching in at the moment.
First of all, can you kind of just give me a little bit of an overview of kind of your rugby journey to date? Obviously, I know a bit more about the Worcester and Saracens bit, but kind of up until that Worcester kind of pathway and centre of excellence, kind of what was your rugby journey like?
So I started really young, age 6, with my twin brother at Seven Oaks Rugby Club. And then at the time my dad was coaching us, and then there wasn't a girls section, so he set up the girls section at the club for me and like a few of the like sisters of the boys and stuff to start playing, and that's kind of grown ever since. I spent a year at Aylesford Bulls playing county rugby, so my county is Kent, so I played under 15s, 18s for that. Got into Richmond Centre of Excellence back when they were in the Premiership. And then age 16 went to Hartpury. So played 2 years at Hartpury, where I then got selected to go into 18s camp in my first year. So then was playing at England 18s, which is where the transition I had to scrum-half came about. Then in my second year of Hartpury, age 17, I trialled for England under 20s and then got in there. And then I've kind of just been in the setup ever since. And then I moved to Worcester as well. And then Worcester University has followed. And since the downfall of that, I've moved to Sarries as a new signing.
And just to start off with Hartpury, just so many people talk about it as kind of seemingly this kind of magical place. Just what is it like to kind of go to Hartpury and kind of be nurtured in that kind of rugby pathway?
I think just that step moving away from home is very like different, and you're kind of thrown into like an all rugby environment. Like you're surrounded by rugby, especially like all your mates, and like that kind of bond you make with people as well is really special. So I think that's what gives Hartpury almost an edge in that as well. And like the players they've obviously produced, you can kind of see from that like what it's kind of done and what it gives you. So from a coaching and player development point of view, like it's pretty good. And the standard is there.
Yeah. How did your shift to scrum-half come about? Was that while at Hartpury, sorry?
So during at Hartpury, so I went to Hartpury as a flanker, believe it or not. And then getting into the England setup, James Coops, he spoke to me, and it was kind of a decision of like, look, you're not that big, but like if you wanted to push for flanker, like we could do it, but like it'd take a lot of work. But I also think you should have a go at scrum half. Like I think you'd be really good at that. And I just thought, you know what, there's no loss in trying something new and like learning a skill set. You can be versatile in that sort of aspect. And I just kind of went and gave it a go and just kind of went off from there.
Who else is kind of in that Hartpury 8th grade with you while you were there?
So my second year, there was Maisie Allen. She was one of my second years. Pip Hendy, she was my second year. And who else? Nikita Prothero. My age grade was the likes of Leah Bruff, who's in camp, Lucia, who's also in 20s camp at the moment, and then some of the younger girls who I was second years too, so like Millie Hyatt, who's coming up, Sophie McQueen, who's also coming up from 18s, people like that.
How exciting is it to kind of now be training and playing against these players when you see them stepping up into the PWR, knowing that you went through that kind of Hartpury experience with them?
It's quite nice, like just that friendship you can like have, and like just seeing other players, and rugby world becomes quite small. Like you don't think it, but then it just kind of gets small, how you know people through other people, like through different clubs and through the pathway and different environments. So it's quite nice that you've built that friendships.
And what was your kind of first experience of an international match? Obviously, 18s kind of have those into pathway games, but kind of what was your first international experience?
So my first international experience was, I think, against Scotland in under 18s, and then against France, which is always a very tricky game. They always bring like a certain flair, which is always interesting and always a challenge to play against, but it's really exciting at the same time. And then going into 20s, I just turned 18, so my first senior women's game was against the South African women's team, like the main women's squad, which was good. It was a challenge, put it that way. Definitely a challenge, but definitely a memory I'll always remember. So yeah, it was good.
Did you, after you made your kind of 20s debut, did you bounce back down to 18s as well?
Yeah, so I played against Scotland, and then for the France games I bounced back and did the Six Nations. I think it was the first time they'd done a under 18 Six Nations, so I went back down and got lots and lots of game time in that, and it was just a very different environment, and it's quite nice to see like how the program's developing, and the fact that we've now got these Six Nations events that are going on, and we can kind of share cultures and like skill levels like against other countries as well and nations.
Obviously, this is going to be your third year kind of at under 20s level now. Just does it feel a bit strange kind of being a senior player, but you're still in an age grade side?
Yeah, I think so. It's very different. Like every year has been very different for me, from being like the baby of the group, like a bit intimidated, to now being like more comfortable in the environment, and you can kind of guide players through it who haven't necessarily been in this environment before, and kind of help them out as well. That is very different to now being one of those older ones and almost a role model as such. I don't want to say that, but kind of am, I guess.
And you mentioned you're kind of heading to Worcester Uni, or you headed to Worcester Uni, sorry. Are you still kind of studying there? And if so, kind of how are you finding the balance of a rugby career and uni life?
So I am commuting to Saracens, believe it or not. So I'm traveling. I'm still doing university and doing lectures, and then traveling down to Sarries on a Tuesday and a Thursday, which is quite tough I mean, some nights I don't get home before midnight, which isn't great, but at the same time, like, my university have been really, really helpful. Like, they've adapted my timetable and really like helped me through just everything, like managing load of work and bits and bobs. So that's really helpful.
And just obviously last season, you kind of had a near enough a full season of Premiership rugby with Worcester. Just how was that experience? Kind of obviously you made your debut the season before, but kind of having a near enough full season. How enjoyable was that, and how much learning did you have from that?
It's very special, especially playing like under the likes of Joe Yap as your coach and the players and family. I know people throw around family a lot, but we were really like, I had like almost a mum and a dad in the team, and they kind of bring the best out of everyone, like regardless whether that's on pitch or off the pitch. It was really something special, and being able to develop like with the likes of Katie Matt, like we worked together quite closely, which was really nice, like just paired up as nines, and I think we pushed each other to be quite competitive as well within the game, and it really helped me as a player to just grow.
And I don't want to kind of dwell on the start of this season too much because it is so sad with what happened with Worcester, but just how tough was it for kind of yourself and the other younger players around that squad not knowing what the next step was going to be?
It was devastating. Like, we were all heartbroken just because of how sudden it had been. I mean, LJ, the 20s coach especially, has helped me, and kind of the pathway had been very, very helpful in like trying to guide like all of us young players towards a Prem club or towards what they think's best for us, whether that is like playing University Bucks or pushing us towards maybe even Champ and getting more game time there, or finding us a Prem club which is going to facilitate like our needs and what is best for us individually, whether that means traveling further or changing whatever it is, and also prioritizing our commitments. So if university obviously is a big driving factor for a lot of us on where we could go and what could we do, like we do have a life outside of rugby, which I think people do forget. Like, we have jobs, we have university that is also very important for our futures. So it was tough, but it was made a lot easier with the help we got.
You mentioned that help. Just kind of how did that Saracens move come about? Was it kind of down to LJ, or was it kind of phone calls with Alex?
I think that I've spoken with a lot of clubs, and Alex reached out, and it was a lot of the decisions I made weren't taken lightly at all. There was a lot of factors that came into play, whether that was university, where I could transfer to for like future years, and how it would work logistically, whether what they provided and gave me as a player, whether they could like meet my needs as such, because I think it was very important to every individual, whether that was like medical care, what they needed, and Saracens just met what I needed. So it just felt like the right suit for me.
And how special was making your debut for them over the weekend?
It was very special. It was nice to get on the pitch with the girls and actually like kind of show what I can do, and hopefully like put myself in a good place for future and stuff.
And obviously plenty of international kind of scrum halves there in Ella and Leanne. Just how much have you learned from them so far? Obviously you've not even been there that long, but how much have you learned from those two kind of internationals?
I think just being in that environment and like being around them and with them, it kind of pushes you, and you kind of watch them and think, okay, how can I put that into my game? Or like, we're not all the same, we're all very different nines, and I think that's what makes it better, is you can take little bits from each other and kind of build that, and I can kind of build my own based off of them. And yeah, it's been really, like, I think I've already improved within this short amount of time, just being around and surrounding myself, doing those 9 sessions and extra skills and 9 stuff with them. So that's quite nice.
And being quite kind of fresh as a scrum half, in terms of, for someone who's played rugby for so long, you're quite fresh as a scrum half. Do you kind of model your scrum half playing as kind of on another player, or is it kind of taking a bit of everybody?
I'm not too sure, if I'm completely honest. I don't really know who I'd like to say. I'd like to be more individually, but I'd say I'd like to play more like. I don't really know. That's a hard question. Skip. Sorry.
Don't worry. And just kind of a last one for me. Just kind of what are your aims for the season, both kind of within an England setup, but also within the Saracens setup as well?
I think just pushing as much as I can for like in both environments, just being a sponge, like learning as much as I can, trying to get as much game time as possible in the England setup, and like being that leader as well. And then at Saracens, kind of just keep training hard and seeing where it gets me, kind of thing.
Sticking with that kind of pathway theme from England under 20, we're going to talk to you in a little bit. Georgia Brock from Gloucester Hartpury, the flanker from Gloucester. Both she's a coach at Hartpury College for the FE kind of further education ACE program. And their women's side have recently been at the World Schools Festival over in Thailand. They sent two sides out there, with one of them winning the tournament, playing 5 games, winning 5 games, scoring 243 points, and conceding none. Just to remember, this was a 7s tournament out there as well. And there was another side out there who played 5, won 4, losing just 1 against the other Hartpury side with a points difference of 52 as well. Just an incredible achievement for those two sides. But we're going to talk to George kind of about how she got into this coaching kind of setup there at Hartpury, and just the experience of being out in Thailand, kind of some standout performers, and what's next for this Hartpury squad. So let's get into this chat with Georgia. So George, thanks so much for chatting to us today. Just first of all, how are you, and kind of you recovered from that journey back from Thailand?
Just about. We got back yesterday at midday, so it's a day post. I had 12 hours sleep, and I've seen some of the girls, and they've all said that they slept well last night. So yeah, just about.
Just kind of before we get into chatting about kind of the experience out there as a whole, just what is your job role within that kind of coaching setup, and also how did you get into that coaching setup as well?
So I am the forwards coach for the under-18s women's program, basically. So I started off as doing the development stuff last year, and then I've just progressed, taking on more and more each year, basically. But obviously I went to Hartpury College, went to Hartpury Uni, and then it's just gone straight from there, really.
And just what was that experience like over in Thailand, just kind of as a coach, but also experiencing the culture as well?
Oh, it's amazing. It is. We've only seen a small amount of Thailand, and from that, it's a lovely country, and yes, completely different culture, but it's a lovely, like, everyone was so welcoming. Yeah, it's just amazing, really.
And kind of just how did you find the tournament? Obviously, the girls kind of smashed it both sides. One of them, I think the stats was points for 243, not conceding for the Acorn side, and the Oaks just losing to the other side. So just what was it like kind of watching the girls succeed out there?
Oh, it was, that's what we went out there to do. We went out to win, and obviously it was fun to be challenged in a different way, so playing against different teams from all around the world. And I think for us it was different. Obviously, having 7s in the middle of the year, it's different. We usually focus a lot of that towards the end of the year. But it's great. It's great for the girls. It's great to see that it is the hard work that they do, and here week in, week out, it is shown across the board that they are progressing as an individual, I guess, as well.
And just kind of, does that make you proud as a coach to see how much they're developing, even from, like you said, something they're not focusing on fully yet?
Oh, definitely. I think that's the main thing Ollie and I took from it, is that we're very proud of the girls. They're working on themselves individually, so can't really, like, they are doing everything that they can do. So it's hats off to them, and hopefully we're halfway through people's second years, halfway through people's first years, that this is just a marker of where they are. And then obviously going back into the 15s league, going back into competing in the ACE program and stuff. So it's, getting back into that, but it's a good marker to show where they are.
Did you play ACE when you were at Hartpury College?
I played ACE. It was a completely different program to what it is now. So it used to be selective, so there used to be 12 people each year. So it was very different, whereas now everyone's involved and everyone gets rugby. So it's a complete different kettle of fish, really.
How important is kind of that development for just English rugby and kind of the pathways through English rugby to kind of see that the opportunities are developing?
Oh, it's even so. I was at college 5 years ago, and to think how far it's gone on in just 5 years. Sorry, um, it's amazing for Pathway Rugby. We've obviously got a lot of young talent, and I think the way that the college, Hartpury College at the moment, I think a lot of colleges are looking at us and going, you know what, it is something to invest in. So it's only going to get better, and I hope moving forward it is even more challenging. Like the girls want to be challenged, so I'm hoping that it gets even bigger and even better from there, really.
And also, how important are those tournaments like the World Schools Festival and opportunities like that to kind of challenge yourself differently? Obviously, like Roslyn Park as well, you have in the summer. Just how important are those different challenges?
Oh, it's very good. Like I've said, it shows where the girls are at, and it gives us markers. And also, it's good for the girls to understand different challenges. Like, even though, yes, the Acorns didn't get a point scored against them, they had to deal with different challenges. For example, the weather, back-to-back games. Like, there's different things that they've had to get overcome basically in the last 10 days. So I think it's a very much a different learning process, but it's also very beneficial for the girls. Like, we got off the plane straight there and then had to go training the day after. So it's understanding how to deal with that, all the different emotions that come with it.
And how did you and Ollie kind of manage the heat and kind of different brand of rugby you potentially playing in such hot conditions?
So the way that the tournament was, we only really had one training day. So we had one big training day, that was the Sunday. So we got there on the Saturday, the Sunday was a big training day, and then it was very much, there was a pool, an Olympic-sized pool, so it was a lot of pool recovery. Got them in the gym, and then the day before it was more like a run through, walk through. There was areas just that we could do walk through, but we had to take a lot of ice with us. So we've been through a lot of ice the past couple of days, a lot of cold towels, and I think it's very much hats off to the girls that done themselves proud. Like, they managed to understand how to deal with the heat. A lot of them took themselves away, there was changing rooms with aircon, so they went and chilled out in there. But it's for, as coaching wise, it was understanding how to deal with substitutes and stuff from there, but to get the most out of them.
You mentioned also kind of the range of talents within the kind of Hartpury College setup. Just who was kind of standout performances from over in Thailand? Who's kind of the ones to watch for kind of people keeping an eye on people coming through?
There's a few. Obviously, you've got Daisy Aspinall, who, very much stand out. But then you've got a couple of others who did stand out, flew under the radar slightly. So you've got like Sarah Lockwood, who's Welsh, scrum-half, phenomenal talent, same as Hannah Marshall. And then that's the Acorns. And then from the Oaks, you've got a couple. You've got like Lily Selman, who in the Bristol setup, Bristol COV and stuff. So there's a lot of talent coming through, and it's just getting them all into different places, I guess.
And just kind of finally, what's kind of next for this squad? Obviously, you touched on kind of being in the middle of the AC, but kind of what's next for the squad and what's next for you as a coach?
It's what's next. They're all on Christmas holiday now, so they've got a couple of weeks off, and then straight back into it. We've got a game a couple of weeks into the term, so it's getting them back flying into the 15 season, really. And I think, it's making sure that they're all ready. There's a lot of international camps and stuff coming up, so it's making sure that they're all progressing as individuals, not as well as a team. So it's getting them into the best shape for camps, but also leading into the final in March, hopefully.
And finally, just to round off episode 9 of the Women's Rugby Show Weekly, we're looking a little bit at the news, as we always do. Starting over in France and just kind of round up the results from the last round of the League One Feminine. There's no games now till Christmas, so we'll be looking at the league table as well. In Pool 1, Stade Bordelais beat Montpellier 17-8. ASM Romanat beat Bobigny 37-0. And Stade Francais beat Stade Villeneuve 10-6. That means that table over in Pool 1 sits Stade Bordelais first, Montpellier second, ASM Romanat in third, Stade Villeneuve in fourth, Stade Francais in fifth, and AC Bobigny in sixth. Over in Pool 2, in Toulouse won away at Blagnac 10-7. Grenoble beat Pau 48-12, and Lyon won 27-12 over Stade Rennais. Just to look at Pool 2 table, Toulouse currently sit top, Blagnac in second, Grenoble in third, Lyon in fourth, Stade Rennais in fifth, and Pau in sixth. Moving on to books, Women's National League now, and after this weekend's results, we're also heading into a break over Christmas. Just to look at the table, Cardiff Met still sit top, but they're getting really quickly chasing down by Hartpury and Exeter, who played 7 games each. Hartpury on 31 and Exeter on 29. Cardiff Met are top on 35 and play 3 more games, though. Then to kind of round off that table, Edinburgh in fourth, Loughborough in fifth, Cardiff in sixth, and Durham in seventh. Looking at the Championship now, and starting off in the north, Sale 1861 and Westport Leeds both played 9 games in first and second, being really closely chased down by Cheltenham Tigers, who sit in third, having played 2 games less. Looking at the rest of the league, Nova Castrian sit in fourth, Kenilworth sit in fifth, Buckingham Swans sixth, Barnsley seventh, Worcester eighth, and Bishop Auckland in ninth. In the Championship South, Thurrock sit top of the table with OA Saints in second, Richmond in third, kind of those top 3 taking a little bit of a gap away from the rest of the league, like in the Championship South, the top Championship North, with the rest of them. Bath in fifth, Sutton and Epsom in sixth, London Irish in seventh, Beckenham in eighth, Newbury in ninth, and Reading Abbey sit in 10th. That was a lot of words. I'm very sorry for that. But finally, to kind of round off the news, the Celtic Challenge is really fast approaching, and we're looking to do kind of a Celtic Challenge special next week ahead of the opening round fixtures over New Year. But we've had our final coaches announcements from the Celtic Challenge, also some squad announcements started to trickle through. The coaches over in Wales, Brytham Thunder, are going to be coached by Ashley Beck, the former Worcester Warriors player and last year's Warriors women coach. And Gwalior Lightning are being coached by Cat Nicholas McLaughlin. Over in Ireland, the Clovers will be coached by Dennis Fogarty and the Wolfhounds by Neil Alcorn. And finally, some of the squads over in Scotland have been announced with Edinburgh and Glasgow. Edinburgh side have been drawn from Watsonians, Stirling, County, Heriot, Corsvin Cougars, and plenty from Edinburgh University. And that side features actually 2 full Scottish internationals in Emma Orr and Sarah Deno. In Glasgow, 10 clubs represented, with Prem champions Stirling County have 6 players, Hillhead Jordan Hill have 5 players, Watsonians 4, and actually 6 of this year's Scotland under-20 side, including Holly Brogan, who captained them versus Italy in that Six Nations, under-18 Six Nations, are also in that squad. So that's quite impressive for Glasgow to see that pathway emerging and have the opportunities for those younger players who perhaps aren't going to make the step up to full international level yet, having these opportunities over with Glasgow Warriors. So plenty of news to kind of sum up there, but just if you're listening to this, make sure you have a great Christmas. If you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to check out our Instagram and vice versa, so you can listen to us on the go. But I've been Sam, by the way. This has been the Women's Rugby Show Weekly. Have a great Christmas, and we'll see you next week with our Celtic Challenge special.